disconnects us from this sense of self. And that's why we practice again and again. And what we want eventually, or maybe quickly, not to wait till eventually, but what we want is to be in that space, come into action from that space, do whatever we have to do, and return there. So it's this movement in and out, and to be able to go in when we want, and to be in the external world when we want, for how long we want. This is a kind of freedom, and we like freedom very much.
So is this, I just wanted to ask you then, how would you describe a personality with high self-respect? And you, actually that's just what you did, isn't it? How would a person with high self-respect, how would he behave? How would she speak? How would she not behave?
I think it's really much more internal than that, because, you know, it's very easy for us to put on a show so that we look like we're in our self-respect, we're in our power because there's people around and we have to present ourselves in a good way. But when we're thinking about self-respect, to me anyway, we want to go to the deepest place within the self, because we want to find out, now, what is really, really, really my sense of self-respect? And there are many things that get in the way of that, and they are to do with traumas. As you know, I'm staying in Germany, and I have been in and out of Germany for the last about 4 years. And one of the things that we become very aware about is the interaction, relationship between German people and English people, because I have a number of nationalities. My dominant one is British. And there was a war a couple of times between England and Germany. And oddly enough, the British royal family is German. That's a kind of paradox. But, you know, at the end of the Second World War, there were many things that were kind of put on Germany, reparations, and you did this bad thing and that bad thing and the other bad thing, and we are okay, we are very good, the English people, etc. And so this created a shadow in the relationship. And even though it was more than 50 years ago, but these things stay. And it takes time for a person to come out from something that's put on them from the outside. I talk about the First World War and Second World War because these are like large events which impacted the entire country and created an atmosphere and made people feel something internally, personally, which is not the same as if you would be completely independent of your country's history. And, you know, one thing that happens to people, they get blamed for something that has nothing to do with them, and then they will carry that. And I think that every single person has quite a bit of individual trauma. Some people have some trauma from school, some people from their family, some people from separation. In Germany, we have quite a lot of people who are refugees from the Middle East, and in France also, and there is a slightly antagonistic relationship between the people who are native to a country and the people who are newcomers to a country, and especially if they come in a condition of trauma, because leaving your home because of a war is a terrible thing. You have a very difficult journey. Many people do not survive the journey. And there's just trauma upon trauma upon trauma that never really gets addressed. And so there is this this face that we put on. We say, I am okay, I'm fine. But then deep down inside, there are unresolved wounds. And these will interfere with a person's, or the totality of a person's self-respect. So that when you put on a nice presentation, somewhere deep inside you, not everybody, but a lot of people have this feeling of being fake. And then when that feeling of being fake comes on, what it does is it reduces a person's self-respect and makes a person feel that they are somehow not right, not quite good, and there's excuse me, there's like a difficulty in the relationship with the self. And then when you come and interact with other people, you have to present yourself in a certain way. And what happens with that is that you avoid having close personal relationships, because when you live with someone or a group of people in very close quarters, then whatever is the real you and whatever you feel about yourself, it's going to come out. But if you feel a little shame due to your different traumas, then you will hide yourself from others, and you will make yourself inaccessible to others, and you will be just operating like as a shell, as a projection on the outside. And this is something that is a kind of pain in the soul. So this kind of pain can be called a lack of self-respect. So a person who has worked through their pain and become deeply honest with themselves and trusted other people about what they have been through and how they have, come to terms with what has happened to them, what they've experienced, and become like really real with all of their wounds included, and not trying to look perfect or hide anything, but just, this is me, and don't expect me to be anything other than me. And you cannot come to that point until you have really come to terms with everything that has happened to you. And this takes time. And this is called psychological work. So we do spiritual work, and we also, on some level, we also have to do the psychological work to be able to move ahead well in our spiritual work, so that when you have come to terms with all of this, you become what is called real. One of the words I often hear in spiritual gatherings when we discuss this sort of thing, I hear the word authentic, which is another word for real. And when you are like really, really real, your inside and your outside, it's all one thing, and you're not trying to pretend to be something that you're not, then I think that is really in self-respect, because it means that you do respect who you are, you do respect what you've been through, You understand what your mistakes have been and you accept them, and you respect yourself because you have faced yourself and you have done your work and you are real. And I think this is, I mean, to me, this is what I call success, you know, making money or becoming famous or anything like that is just another facade. But to dispense with the facades and just, this is me, and if you don't like it, that's okay. I am okay with me. I have a clean, clear conscience, and if it doesn't suit you, I can't do anything about that, but I'm right with me, you know? And if I'm right with me, then the things that I do, how I think, how I feel, what my values are, what my personal ethical policy is, all of this, I think, is kind of combination of elements that to me would say, okay, self-respect. And then another sign that I would want to add to that is that you are clear about who you are. And so when other people try to influence you or put something on you or accuse you or tell you that, oh, I can see you, I can see through you, all of that, this is just games people play, and you don't want to fall for that. One of the very interesting things that was there in the teachings that most of us who are on this meeting studied today is there was a mention that only you know yourself. And it's very important to remember that other people may project something onto you or accuse you of something that's not real. Don't buy into that. That's also a sign of a person in their self-respect. And don't give away your power.
So Denise, you said when I summarized that a little bit, you started off with trauma, and that we all seem to carry a kind of trauma deep in the self, in the subconscious, in the soul, and this makes us hiding, not showing what we truly are, and to such an extent that we even it doesn't even allow us to have very close relationships. And then you said, and you work yourself through that, and then you become real. And I think that sounds very attractive to us. We want to be real. We want just to be standing here and say, that's how I am. And you say, work yourself through it. Can you elaborate on that? What do you work on and how?
Okay. I think one thing that is often suggested to us in our spiritual practice, and which is also a suggestion to anyone who is grappling with this maybe a broken sense of identity or addiction or addictive behavior, it's always said, write your story. And write the story of what happened to you. This is really very good because there are many things going on inside you that you haven't really spoken about or written about. And the first step is to write your story. And so in the practice of Raj Yoga, when somebody wants to take it up seriously, it's also suggested, now you write your story, because in your story, you will see what your pain is. You will see where you got wounded and how you tune those wounds. You know, there's one expression that we have in the practice of Raj Yoga, and it is a practice that is called do not take sorrow. And okay, we have to think rather deeply about that, because there are many many things that happen to us, especially when we're very, very young and sensitive and we don't have much life experience, but we will get wounded by something or some people or some circumstance, and we will take it right in, and we carry that wound with us, and it will inform how we feel about things. I'll just tell you a little story. There was a young child who was 6 years old, a little boy, and his parents divorced. So he was living with his mother, and his father was in another place. And I know these people. And then one day his father decided that he wanted his wife to come back with him no matter what, because it didn't look good for him that his wife left him. And so he found a way to kidnap the child and carry him away to the other town where he was living, and to use that child like a bargaining chip. And he was very threatening to the child, and the child was very, very scared. He didn't know what was happening or how long he would be there. And the father said many, many bad things about the mother, and so on and so on. And then after a few weeks, he returned the child to the mother. And the child was really, really badly affected by this experience. And an example of it is if any time the doorbell would ring, he would rush to his mother, cling to her and say, "Don't open the door until you first of all know who it is," because he was afraid of getting kidnapped again. I'm saying this just to show how things happen to people when they're very young, very sensitive, and it will stay with them their whole life. And there will be a reaction to anything that resembles that original trauma. And usually we have a number of different traumas, not just one. So when you write your story, you, as an adult, all these things happened to you when you were a child, you were a teenager, you were a young adult, you were growing up, all the different things that happened to you, you can see patterns. Seeing patterns is really very, very helpful because these patterns will be still with you. And you see the origin of these patterns, and you start to have a lot more control over it rather than it has control over you. And also you see where you're especially sensitive, because if you're hurt somewhere, anytime that place is touched by some similar situation, all that wound will open up again, start bleeding again, and you will be disempowered by that situation. So doing this sort of thing is to bring yourself into your power and very consciously see, oh, my emotion that I'm feeling about some rather innocuous situation has an origin in a traumatic situation that resembles this situation. And this is why I'm having an overreaction. And then you can calm yourself down because you understand it. And like that, you start looking at where your pain is, looking at where your wounds are, looking at where you overreact, looking at some kinds of behaviors that you have that other people say, "Why are you doing this?" And for you, it's really normal, but for everybody else, it seems like something funny. And maybe they're very polite and they don't say anything. But if you're with people who know you very well, maybe they will feel quite comfortable to say, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" And then when somebody asks you about it, you immediately feel it much more intensely, and it may bring your emotion up to the surface, which you don't want, because you don't want people to see your pain, your sensitivity. And so you try to push it down. And in that way, there's lots of stuff that's pushed down. So this process of writing your story, having a look at the patterns, observing yourself, and then thinking of yourself as a spiritual being who is an actor. And if you're an actor in a film, you may or may not have the leading role, but most films that people look at, there's all kinds of catastrophes that the hero has to deal with, and there are villains, and there's all sorts of things that happen. And because it's a movie, you think it's entertainment, but when it's real life, then you think, oh, it's not entertainment at all, it's really catastrophic. But think of yourself as an actor, and that these things happened, but it doesn't mean you're a bad person. You see, otherwise what happens is people get socialized in many cultures to feel that they are a bad person because of their wounds. And actually, the wounds don't make them a bad person. The wounds make them a person who is wounded. In spiritual practice, we don't think about good people and bad people. We think about people who are, excuse me, I just, everyone is a soul. Everyone is fundamentally pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful, and wounded and reactive. And, you know, some people may decide that in response to all their wounds, they're going to perform badly. And then everybody will think they're bad, and they'll say, I'll give you something to think I'm bad about. It gets very, very complicated. Then to extract oneself from all of that which is going to put on you from the outside world is work, as inner work. But this is really how you, excuse me, this is really how you go through these layers and get down to the essence of you and realize that no matter what happened, good, bad, or indifferent, I am a good person. And I'm a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful soul. And the Supreme Being loves me. And all whatever happened is what it is. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. And the rest of my life starts from now. And I don't have to be caught up in the past. When patterns come up, I need to recognize them and move on, you see. You start to be very clear about who you are and what happened, and why you are, how you are, and you move on, you move forward. Because you say, this is me, and if you don't like it, or if you don't like me, I'm a good person. If you don't like me, it's your problem. Because I've checked myself. I'm a good person. So that's good enough for me. And you see, self-respect is something that you build, because no one comes in this life completely, or very few anyway, completely free from traumas, free from karmic accounts, free from this, free from that. We all have all sorts of things. And so to build the self and make your existence your project, your work of art, you know, this is why I'm alive, is to become the complete me and restore myself to my essential originality. That's what this life is for, and this is why we do spiritual work, because it's really focused on that.
Very nice. Actually, you covered many questions I was going to ask you.
Sorry.
Thanks so much. Very nice. I just see the journey of one's life. We start with a young age. We come probably from our past lives. We have imprints that are not so beneficial. And then from young age onwards, things happen. And we, through these wounds, we start seeing the world that is covered actually by my own story. And I don't see that. And I find it really very helpful, this advice to write your own story and to see these patterns and see, okay, these are the situations that hurt. So what is going on there? I just wonder, and then you say, when you start seeing your patterns, you get a bit distance. Probably it also starts hurting less, the same situation. And then you position yourself as a spiritual being. And I wonder, Denise, when you do this practice to position yourself again and again as a spiritual being, can you kind of undo the experiences from your childhood? Can you make that up?
No, you can't take history and make it go away. I mean, there are people who delete all sorts of things from the history books, but it doesn't mean it goes away. No, you come to terms with it.
You come to terms with it.
When you say it shouldn't have happened, why did this happen? This is not right, then that means you're rejecting it. You know, there was this story that you remember Dadi Janki, one of the very great yogis who is important in many of our lives because she taught us a spiritual practice. But when she was quite new in the spiritual practice, she had come from an abusive marriage. And she had been assaulted and quite badly injured. And then she thought that that event was bad and it shouldn't have happened. And why did it happen? And it was not right. And then she realized that the overall drama, the big story of human life, when you look at it in the biggest possible picture, the whole big thing, all the way from heaven to hell, you know, it's an extraordinary story and we're all part of it. And everything that happens, good or bad, makes us what we are. And so she realized that it was all part of what was there in the drama, in the film. And everything that happens to us, it's not that only good things are okay and then things that are not good, they're not okay. No, we have to look at everything that it is formative of me. And when you come to terms with it, then you include it as part of yourself. And you're not trying to cut off a section of yourself and throw it away, because yourself is indivisible. And yourself is your soul. Whatever happens to you happens to your soul. So it's not going anywhere. It's there. But you need to come to terms with it to be able to include it as part of your picture. And we live in a culture which says, only good things are good and bad things are bad, and we should have only good things and no bad things. And that's like baby stuff, you know, that's not how life is. We need to have the strength and the wisdom and the broadness of character to include everything. Because these things are there and we cannot make them go away because they're there.
It reminds me of what Ram Prakash said. we had a talk with him, and he survived the attacks on the September 11th. He was in one of the Twin Towers, and he kept emphasizing also the need of crisis actually for personal growth.
Yeah.
That crisis gives you a push, and then afterwards you become more than you have been before. And you said that in a nice statement that the aim of life should be, or no, you said my aim of life to become the complete me. And I like that very much. So if we would keep the focus to become the complete me, it would put so many things in perspective. But when I look at my own life, I would go for this aim 100%. I want to become the complete me. But then I get distracted by little things, especially by tasks. And I see that this is also connected with self-respect. And I would assume that this happens to many. We have a very high aim, but then we get distracted by other people, by little conflicts, by tasks. So how could we stay more focused on becoming the complete me?
Well, you see, you've given away something really, because when you get caught up in tasks, and we live in a task-based world, we make that our identity. Many people, they say their identity is their job, and their job is a bunch of tasks that they accomplish and they get rewarded for, and that becomes who they are, you see. So people look for self-respect in their activity that they do for earning money. And if their activity makes them famous and rich and all of that, then they say, this is my identity. And this is what we call as false ego. And it's a substitute for self-respect. So in that case, your self-respect is, this is me, and I do this and I do that and I do the other, but that's just something I do to to contribute as part of my expression of myself. But it isn't me, it's what I do some of the time. But me is much more subtle. And, when people don't have self-respect, they will look for a substitute. And, the famous one is Mr. Donald Trump, I am America. And it's quite interesting if you look at his personal background, how he is packed full of all sorts of dysfunctional family background. But there's plenty of trauma in that. No, to be who you are, and then, okay, this is who I am. I go back to Daddy Yankee again. You remember what she used to say all the time? Who am I? Who do I belong to? Okay, so now what shall I do? And that's a really very good recipe. First point is, who am I? And what am I? A being who has come to terms with all my issues, a being who is in my power, a being who is connected with the Supreme Being. Okay, so that's me. Now what shall I do? So what you do is you see what's there and what's needed, and you respond to the need of the hour, and you create some pure karma and then go to the next thing. So it's a little bit like that, but you never think that your identity is what you do. That is a substitute for your identity. And this is all the false ego. So many people are caught up with that. We call that body consciousness, but it's not consciousness of the body. It's to identify with what people reflect back at you as being good, you know, and they say, oh, you are this and you are that and you are the other. And wherever you get rewarded, then you will build up a substitute self out of that, but it's fake, you see.
So when I think of practical examples, let's say there are situations let's say when there's a meeting. I used to have meetings with persons that would really be quite unpleasant for me, where I would lose my self-respect. I would feel very small, very inappropriate, for example. And of course, when these kind of meetings, when they happen again and again, it kind of seems then to reinforce this lack of self-respect. This can be this situation, it can be another situation. What would you suggest? How do you prepare yourself so that you start having other experiences, that you can build up your self-respect?
Well, as you were speaking, I was remembering one of the teachings that we have in the Raj Yoga, and that is anyone who you have to meet is no greater than you. They may have a higher position, they may be rich, they may be all full of plenty of ego, but no one is higher than you. And when you think that you are, or you compare yourself with that person or that group of people unfavorably, then you're giving away your power and you're making yourself weak. And that is part of conditioning and all sorts of things like this. And if you go back to your story that you write, you know, what is all the stuff that happened to me, and you may find that there's a pattern of people in authority or in position where they present themselves as being greater than you, better than you, and they also push it on you so that they want you to feel less than. And they say that if you do what they want you to feel, what they want you to feel, then that's being polite and that's a good boy and stuff like that. And so you get conditioned to do that. And then it becomes a wound, it becomes a pattern. And every time you're in a situation like that, all your capabilities and capacity and wonderful competence vaporizes because that thing takes over. And so when you go into your wounds and you see your patterns and you say, no, you know, I can choose not to give my power away. So you practice being no less than these people and remember what your capabilities are, and you can even rehearse a performance, because anytime you go into a scene in the drama, you're an actor and you have to do a performance, and you can rehearse for it just like any other actor, so that you come through as the real you, and not to let them take away your power due to this conditioning and so on. That can be done. But you have to see it. You see, once you see it, then you can work with it. If you don't see it, you become a victim to it every time, because the world we're in is all about victims and predators, but we don't want to be a predator or a victim. So that means we have to be in our power and in our self-honor. And there's one other expression that we hear in our teachings: do not come down from your seat of self-respect and your position. So you position yourself, this is me, and this is who I am, and if you don't like it, it's not my problem, that's your problem. You bring yourself into that positioning and then go into the meeting like that, you see. Not like, oh, I don't know whether they're going to think anything good of me or whatever. You already lost by doing that, you know. And this can be patterns from childhood that you just haven't noticed.
So I like these very practical tips. Again, you come back again to the writing the story. And I hope many of us, we are going to write this story. It really seems very crucial to do that and see the patterns. And you also said, practice being no less than other people. And then you gave examples how that practice actually by thinking like that. So I take up these thoughts and I think like that, make these thinking patterns my own. Do you have other practical tips how you can build self-respect also from your experience? What is your journey? What were your practices that helped you in building self-respect?
Well, I can think of certain situations that have happened to me. I remember one situation where I was really having to be really quite firm about, okay, this is me and take it or leave it. And so, and I was having to put myself in front of some people in very high authority figures and a lot of power over me and this and that. And I made myself ready. I said, okay, I have to do this because that's it. I said, you know, this is what I will do. This is what I won't do. And this is what I have in mind to do. And if you want it, great. And if you don't want it, great. And they said, yeah, we want it. Come, we want that, you know. So you get so much conditioning that you have to put yourself down, but actually they don't want that. They want you to be up. They want you to be in your power. But then, you know, the world is very competitive. So if you become too powerful, then sometimes people get upset by that and they find ways to diminish you. And there's a game like that that goes on. So you just have to notice when that game is going on, what exactly is the game. There's a lot of games people play. And we have to really be thinking in our priorities. The highest priority is yourself. The second priority is God. And the third priority is everybody else. And our conditioning is first priority is everybody else, second priority is God, and third priority is you. That's all wrong, you know, but mostly people don't get that. And if you say first priority me, second priority God, third priority everybody else, they say, oh, you're just an egotistic, selfish person, but actually not. You see, so there's a lot of these messages that you get from the big world, which are specially designed to make you uncompetitive in a competitive world. What are you competing for? That's an illusion already, you know. Why are you here? Ask yourself, you know, why am I here? I'm here to develop myself to my fullest potential. That's why I'm here. And I'm doing this in a company with the divine. And there's all kinds of other people around who have all sorts of agendas. And it's an obstacle course. And I need to get skillful and understand who I am and understand what's going on. And then I can function. Otherwise, I can never even grow up. You know, many people, they don't grow up because they avoid facing these difficulties, and they avoid standing up for themselves because they're told that that's not good, but it is very good.
So what I hear from that is to build self-respect, you need a great deal of courage. You need to be ready to take risk. When I'm thinking of your example, you risk that people would say, okay, fine, then believe it. But they wanted you to continue with the work, right? So, but you were ready to take this risk, or maybe you sense that there is actually no risk. But we need courage, we take risks, we become strong. Do we have to be careful not to be arrogant? Do we consciously have to practice also humility? Or is this also one of the risks? Yeah, well, if I'm sometimes, I would be arrogant, what's the point then? What's the problem? Then I correct it the next time. How do you think about that?
Well, I think this statement, don't be arrogant or you are arrogant, is another one of these messages that people tell someone to diminish them. You need to be very clear what is arrogance. And if somebody accuses you of arrogance, it may be that they're afraid because you're in your self-respect and they're going to call it arrogance so that you diminish yourself. And that's a game, you know, so don't buy into that one. That's not right, you know. But risks is very important. Some time ago, I really spent a lot of time thinking about risks and the importance of taking risks. And when you do take, you know, there's a reckless risks, not a good idea, but calculated risk. And to do what really you feel is what you really want to do, what's really important to you, you have to take a risk that you might get expelled, excommunicated, chucked out, rejected, whatever. So, okay, maybe you will, maybe you won't, but it's like, it doesn't matter, you know, because you're an eternal soul, so nobody can kill you. I had some very big difficulties at one point, and out of it, I got these 3 really good expressions. One of them, nobody can kill me. They may try, no problem. Second, nobody can corrupt me. And they try, believe me, they try. Because when somebody corrupts you, you know, so you have to be careful about this. How do you get corrupted? Somebody will get you to do something that is against your conscience. And they will say that if you do this, you get a promotion. And if you don't do it, you get out, you know. So they will get you to do something. And once they have that, you're corrupted and you're under their power. So many people have tried to do that with me. And fortunately, I've always said, you know, go jump in the lake. And maybe it cost me a lot, but I never got corrupted. And that is really good because I have a clean conscience. And the third one is nobody can break my spirit. So these 3 things, nobody can kill me, nobody can corrupt me, nobody can break my spirit. This makes you strong. And once you've understood that, then it's a different game, you know. And so when you're on a different level of the game, like any of these video games or whatever, there are different levels, right? You come onto a higher level in the game, you take risks, you're in your power, you consult your conscience, and you really understand how to do moral reasoning, and then you do what is right, even if there would be a very, very high cost. You take that risk and you find that you're moving forward. And so that's what I have to say about that. And I think that's also part of your self-respect. Because if you don't respect yourself because you are corrupted, then you can't really go forward.
So we have another very practical tip to be a kind of armored with very powerful, I could call it affirmations, but affirmations that are actually based deeply, rooted in truth. So very powerful affirmations that we keep chanting inside to keep this high spirit alive. right?
You don't keep chanting. Once you get it, you just have to really get it, because you'll be tested a lot of times, and you have to. I mean, when you realize something, really realize it. That's it. It's part of your blood. You don't have to chant it. You chant things that you don't have.
Great. Very good. Very good. I like that. Yeah. So again, it's about going into the depth and really understand the truth of that. I see here a connection with the times we're living in. I find that probably many too, that the energies in the world, they are quite strong. So there's not only thousands, but millions and millions of people projecting vibrations of fear and frustration and anger into the atmosphere. I feel to not be influenced by that. We have to be in a very high spirit. We have to be actually in our self-respect. Otherwise, even though we don't see the influence, we will get influenced. Can you say something about that? Because it seems to me very relevant to know that there is this influence, and this is how I can protect myself.
Well, I think that we do need to be very aware of this energetic force, which is really very strong, very negative, very destructive, very energy draining, and we have to deal with it. Sometimes people think that they can protect themselves from it, so then they think they don't have to deal with it, but I don't think that's so effective. I think we have to upgrade ourselves so that we're able to deal with it. And if we can't deal with it, then that's not a good sign, and we should go in there, and face it again and again until we get good at dealing with it. And it's going to get more and more difficult as time goes by. And for us to avoid it means that we're going to get less and less able to deal with it. So that's self-defeating. So I think that we should not go that route, but just say, okay, let me grow, let me get stronger, let me deal with it. If it wounds me, I'll handle my wounds. It's okay, keep going. A good warrior has a few scars.
You mean deal with it, whatever comes in front of me? Deal with whatever situations you feel you find yourself in. Do not avoid anything you should be doing, actually.
I mean, don't do stupid things, and don't open up to people who are really harmful, but you have to be a good judge of character. That's very important. But when something comes at you head on, you must face it and deal with it and keep going. And you have to assert, you have to say, okay, this is my position vis-a-vis this thing. And then you get into quite possibly a conflict. You must never be afraid of conflict or try to avoid it. Some people think spirituality is to turn into a kind of pink flower, run away from everything. That's not.
So this is another something very practical hint. Don't avoid conflicts. In Switzerland, we are good in avoiding conflicts, actually.
You have good mountains around.
We are, as a neutral country, we often prefer to stay neutral, but it can be avoiding also. Denise, we come to the maybe last question. Let's see, because afterwards we're going to have a meditation with you. But you traveled a lot. You have met many people. You have met many people who meditate since decades. And if you see your experience, if you recollect what you have experienced, what you have seen in others, what kind of advices can you draw that you can give us now?
Well, as you were putting the question, I was remembering that I was asked to speak to the military who were on the front line in a war quite far away from Europe in the tropical areas. And so I said, sure. And I went to this very remote place where there was war going on. And so I met these young guys, they're young, you know, in their 20s. And they are out there on the front line and they don't know whether they will come home at night because they could be killed. And one thing is they have to kill others, which they don't like to do. And the other is the others might kill them, which they also don't like. And they're also married. They have young wife, young children perhaps, or they're about to get married or something, you know, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old boys. And, you know, their biggest problem was fear. And they had to go to the front line because they're in the army. And so that was that. And they were not in high ranks. They were, you know, right there in front of the bullets. And so I had done something with the police, and then the military heard about it and they said, no, I want you to come and say these things to our guys on the front line because that's going to help them. And it was really about knowing who you are and knowing your connection with God and just facing the reality of what is there, you see. Because, you know, there are all kinds of people who are very good speakers, and I can be a good speaker too, but it doesn't prove or disprove anything. When you're, you know, what they say, the rubber hits the road, that is where it's important. And so people who I have met who have really dealt with disasters and with war and, you know, people on the front line in the COVID-19, you know, people who are really facing stuff and they have to, you know, go into their power. They have to be with the divine and just do it. And sometimes these are not famous people. They may be simple people, but to me, these are the heroes, you know, this is what counts. And I mean, I have met all kinds of people indeed, but the people who are like these frontline people, these first responders to disasters, and these are people who really have to find their power to do the basic work that they do, for which they get hardly any thanks, not much remuneration, but these are really the ones who count.
Very nice. I think what you say, it's not only for big situations, even in daily life, when your mood is down, your spirit is a bit low, and then whatever it is, face it, be with the divine, and just do it. I like that. It's simple and there is power in that. Mm-hmm. Denise, thank you so much. I found it was very rich. It was very concrete, very helpful. We know what we have to practice. We know what we have to do. We know what we can do. Before the commentary, would you have something more to say that can be of help for us?
I think what tempts us is this feeling, I have to do something, I have to prove something. This word, I have to. And this is again something that Daddy Genki used to come up with every so often and say, you know, don't say I have to, because you miss the point if you say that. Be what you are and do what comes in front of you to do. When you think I have to, it means you're away from yourself and away from your self-respect, I think.
So, I don't know, maybe we had about close to 120 people listening. Maybe not everyone has taken notes and would think now, oh, I can't remember everything. We will put this talk on YouTube, so you can listen to it again, you can go through it, you can take notes, and we can all work with all these practical examples and practical hints. So again, thanks so much, Denise, for your time, for your wisdom, for your sharing, authentic sharing. And of course, we look now forward to 10 minutes meditation, where you take us into the experience of self-respect. Would you like to have music, Denise, in the background, or just silence?
I think we're okay with silence.
Mm-hmm.
You remember at the beginning of this program, we sat quiet, positioning the self in the seat of the soul, the center of the forehead. Very aware of my identity as a pure spirit, soul, light, conscious, intelligent, motivated by love, at peace with myself. At peace with a world of uncertainty, insecurity, but yet at peace. Whatever happens, I will deal with it as it comes. The ground of being, solid state of peace, turned within. Just being myself. In my power. I have been sustained and taught and learned many things. And now is the time to put this all into practice. I go deep inside. Detach from the everyday world. Move beyond the ordinary. I step into another dimension. World of light. That's always there. I'm light. I come from that light. And I will return to it by and by. I am the imperishable being of light. I have always existed. I pass through many things. I am still here. I cannot be killed. I go deep into my original identity, pure, powerful soul. I have my freedom. A clean, clear conscience. I cannot be corrupted. I have my integrity. I am connected with the higher power. The intelligence of the universe. The wise and beautiful being of light. My source. My strength. My support. I remember who I am. And then gently let yourself return to the everyday world. Reconnect your body is still connected with the divine source.
With this beautiful experience, we say again thanks to Denise and also to the team in the background. This is Lois at the technique, and then preparation, Anna and Stefan. And I suggest that we keep the mics closed so that we can remain actually what has been shared. Otherwise, we get very quickly distracted. So thanks for joining, everyone, and hope to see you again. And Denise, all the best. We we haven't seen you the last time. We will invite you again if you allow us.
Thank you. Yes.
Om Shanti. Bye-bye to everyone.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you.
Om Shanti, thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Denise from Guatemala.
Thank you, Sister Denise.
Om Shanti, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.